So here I want to talk about a very important word that can sometimes be overlooked in terms of how important and helpful it is, and that word is this. The word this, especially on questions involving the function of the underlined sentence and the structure of the passage. And I should note that this video is somewhat of a follow-up to a couple of previous videos on function questions, as well as some videos on structure questions. So this sort of complements those. Now, what do we want to do in general on function of the underlined sentence questions? Well, we want to read each sentence, focusing on the relationship between those sentences. It's just that in this case, we only have two sentences, two very long sentences. So in Virginia Woolf's novel, To the Lighthouse, the character Lily Briscoe pauses mid-painting to reflect on Mr. Ramsay's sudden silence, a moment she interprets as a subtle plea for sympathy. Her own discomfort deepens when she realizes that he expects her to respond with some reassuring phrase. Okay, so what is the first sentence doing? It is describing, a character. Well, a character slash scene. A scene in a novel, but one with a focus on this particular character, Lily Briscoe. And so we get into the next sentence, this moment. And why is this important? Because it points back to the previous sentence, and basically it's going to tell us what that sentence was doing, what's important about that sentence. So this moment, depicting Lily's recognition of an unspoken emotional need, as well as her awareness that he expects her to recognize it, demonstrates what literary scholar so-and-so terms cognitive empathy, the ability to infer others' mental and emotional states in complex social situations. So that means that our underlined sentence is describing a character slash scene that the following sentence elaborates on. And we could probably get more specific, but that the following sentence elaborates on. And how does it elaborate on it? By doing so in the context of this term, cognitive empathy. And so A, it offers a description of a narrative technique Woolf uses that is analyzed in the following sentence. This might seem somewhat tempting, but if we really look at it, the underlined sentence is not actually describing a narrative technique. It is relating what happened in a particular scene. And even if we did want to grant that it was describing a narrative technique, the next sentence isn't really analyzing a narrative technique. It is talking about this idea of cognitive empathy, and that's an ability that humans have in general. In other words, it's not something that is specific to characters in novels. And so, while that one might be a little bit tempting, it's ultimately going to be incorrect. Now B, it introduces a literary character, check, whose motivations are explained using a scholar's theory in the following sentence. So who is our scholar? Lisa Sunshine. What is her theory? This idea that cognitive empathy enables people to infer others' mental and emotional states in complex social situations. And so does it say anything about the motivations? Yes. Her recognition of an unspoken emotional need, that's a motivation, as well as her awareness that he expects her to recognize it. So that checks all the boxes, and that is going to be correct. Checking the others, though, C, it summarizes the critical reception of a character. I don't think we see anything about the critical reception. And then a theme in Woolf's fiction that is contradicted. Well, I think just in general, it wouldn't make sense if we're thinking about, efficient or effective writing to present something and then turn around and contradict it. I don't think you're generally going to see that, but in any event, we don't see it here. Now, another one. In this case, we have three sentences. So we're going to, again, take stock of those sentences as we go, but pay extra attention to our clue in the end in the form of the word this. So excavations at a Viking settlement in coastal Newfoundland reveal remnants of wood not native to the region, providing early evidence of transatlantic trade in the 11th century. Maritime historians propose that Norse sailors may have acquired the lumber through trading expeditions to the British Isles, where they likely bartered for goods, including timber and textiles. This exchange highlights the sophistication of early Viking trade networks and their capacity to span geographical distances. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that our underlined sentence describes again, how clearly can I write this? It describes a proposed trade route that the next sentence expands upon. The next sentence explains why that trade route is important. Something like that. Describes a proposed trade route that the following sentence elaborates on. And again, in elaborating on it, it is elaborating on what is significant about it. So A, it explains why researchers believe the wood remains found at the site may not have originated locally. No, it doesn't really say anything about what researchers think about the origins of those materials. And I think that's all we need to say about that. So B, it provides information that helps support a claim about a discovery's significance that is presented in the following sentence. Yes, the following sentence elaborates on this exchange and why it's important. It highlights something, and that word highlights is a clue that they're talking about significance. And so that is going to be correct. C, it doesn't really list specific objects that were found. If anything, the first sentence, but even the first sentence doesn't get that specific. It just says remnants of wood. And then D, it proposes a theory that challenges a widely held belief. Well, if we were going to see something that challenged something else, we would need a word, such as challenges or contradicts or undermines or something like that, that would signal some sort of challenge, and we definitely don't have that here. We also see this sort of relationship where they make a point and then tell us what the significance of that point is. We also see that from time to time in these structure questions. So now in a previous video, I talked about how when you get two-part answer choices like we have here, we want to be thinking from to. Where is it starting? Where is it going? So working with newly digitized archives, this researcher and her team analyzed handwritten shipping manifests records from 18th century Moroccan ports. By comparing cargo records across different years and locations, they identified trade patterns that revealed a previously unknown commercial route linking North African trade merchants with Scandinavian ports. Okay, so we could say that these first two sentences are basically, they're describing basically a study. They're saying what they did, how they did it. The last sentence is going to tell us about the significance of that study. So this discovery not only sheds light on, so that's kind of like highlights, sheds light on a long overlooked aspect of global trade history, but also opens new avenues for research into cross-cultural economic exchange in the early modern era. So it goes from describing a study to basically explaining its significance. And if we're talking about the structure of a passage, this sort of general characterization is what I would recommend, because we're really thinking about what is it doing more than what it's saying. So it presents an established theory about trade routes, then contrasts that. And again, we don't see anything that would indicate a contrast, and so we don't want to pick that. It describes how researchers made a historical discovery, then explains the importance of that discovery. Yes, it describes a study and explains its significance. And again, they really seem to like this relationship, whether it's in a structure passage or a function passage. And again, that word, this discovery sheds light on, this finding highlights, etc. That's like a flashing neon sign that says, here's the point, here's why it matters. Okay, so C, it definitely doesn't list tools and methods. Well, if it does list them, it mentions them, maybe you could grant that the first part is correct, but it doesn't outline possible follow-up studies. And then there's really nothing at all about a debate between historians, let alone an evaluation of the strength of that. But again, the point of this video is to emphasize the word this is your friend, especially when it appears on these kinds of questions. So don't overlook those hints and really try to use them to your advantage in determining the structure of a passage or the function of a sentence within the passage.